Dr. Warren Farrell is back in studios, got a new book out, Rollmate to Soulmate, The 7 Secrets of Lifelong Love, and he's also got 3 separate thermoses.
Yeah, one for hot water, one for coffee, and one for tea.
Is that normally what you pack?
Yeah.
What kind of tea you got going there, Doc?
The tea is not chamomile tea, ginger tea.
All right.
And the hot water is, I just did the Audible for the Rollmate to Soulmate book, and as I was going through, I had made regular tea, and my throat was getting a little, sort of clogged. And so the person who was the Audible specialist said, just try hot water. So I tried hot water, and it was much better.
Oh, yeah.
So,
how long's the audiobook?
The audiobook is about, I think, about 6 hours, I think. It took me, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Are more people listening to audiobooks now than buying physical hardcovers of books?
I have not finished doing the Audible book yet, and it's outselling the hardcover version of Rollmate to Soulmate by about 6 to 1.
Yeah, I think that's where we're heading now.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, my son, 18, every time I talk to him, he's taking a walk and listening to an audiobook. He's never sitting under a tree reading anymore.
When I don't walk with somebody, I walk with listening to an audiobook.
So what can we find in the book?
Basically, about 30 years ago, I started doing these. I was doing a lot of workshops, and one portion of the workshop was on couples communication. And somebody wrote me and said that small portion of the workshop, it was so helpful to me that I'm using it for my family business. And that was the CEO of Walmart.
Oh, wow.
And so I thought, well, if he's using this for the family business, maybe something is of use here. And as I began to sort of expand it, I realized that the biggest single problem I was running into was the same problem that John Gottman and everybody else ran into. I was offering the advice of not becoming defensive when you were criticized by your loved one. And everybody agreed with me. But the moment they got home and the criticism appeared, the wisdom disappeared. And so I said, all right, this is not working for me any better than it's working for anybody else. But if I can get around this, I realized that historically speaking, when you heard criticism, it was a potential enemy. So it made sense to get up your defenses or kill the enemy before the enemy killed you.
Yeah, I feel defensiveness with criticism is a big problem. But first, we have to decide if it's criticism. Because sometimes people are just telling you things or asking you for other things. And then other times, you bring the criticism upon yourself because you've chimed in. I've had this happen a million times where I go, look, there's a dozen. A dozen means there's 12 eggs in a carton, and someone will jump in and go, no, there's only 10. And I'll go, huh? And they'll go, it's 10. And I go, oh, all right, well, wait, let me look it up. And then they'll go, it's a dozen. It's a dozen in a carton. And they go, yeah, okay. And then I go, well, why'd you say 10? And they go, why are you picking on me? And I'm like, I'm not picking on you. You dove in with some bad information when you didn't need to. And now you're suffering a little for it. But next time, don't dive in so fast and yell that the person's wrong or whatever it is. So some of it is just stuff that's self-induced. Like, you don't have to say anything. That's number one. Number two, most of the issues I've ever gotten into with women is I'm just telling them a better way to do something or sort of how to do something. And they go, why are you riding me? And I'm like, listen, you're putting the whites in with the reds in the laundry and you're washing it in hot water. I'm just telling you, you know what I found myself saying to women a lot? I'm not telling you how I do it. I'm just telling you how it's done. I learned it from a Tide commercial.
Yes.
But you shouldn't feel like this is that personal, and you shouldn't take this with so much criticism and energy. I'm really just imparting something.
Yes. One of the chapters in Rollmate to Soulmate is the 4 depleters of love. And one of those depleters is criticisms, but criticisms don't feel like criticisms to the giver. The giver of criticisms often feels like she or he is making a suggestion that will improve the relationship and therefore even improve intimacy. But the receiver of a suggestion that will do that improvement of intimacy almost always experiences it as criticism.
Well, I think a lot of it is baked in because I grew up in an environment where I was being coached all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd have these big, scary guys yelling at me, you're doing it wrong, you know,
Yes,
and do it right, and yelling at everybody and sort of stopping and criticizing. And I learned that it was because they cared and because they wanted to win and because they wanted me to succeed.
Yes.
And that's how I interpreted it, even though it didn't feel good to be singled out and yelled at. It still felt I understood what they were doing, and that they were taking the time to be there and to do this.
Yes.
They weren't getting paid. This is pop pee-wee football coaches, and they were volunteering their time.
Yes.
And so I had a context. And then I got older, and I would talk to people who didn't play team sports. It's not just women. It's like 31-year-old dudes, and they're fucking pussies. And by the way, there's a kid screaming outside the door. We should try to do something about that. Somebody other than me, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. But feel free. Everyone's deputized to stop that. And I would talk to young people who work for me, and I would talk to women, I would talk to whatever, and they couldn't handle it. And I was like, I'm telling you how to do this better. I don't know why you're getting agitated or whatever, but they didn't play team sports, and they weren't used to being talked to in a certain way.
Yeah, two major factors. If you haven't played, one of the great contributions of team sports is exactly what you said, that you learn to take criticism and use it to improve your performance and the team's performance, and it really feels like, and after a while you become resilient and you understand, even unconsciously, that the criticism will help improve you. However, when you really love somebody, you're more vulnerable. And if let's say you've been a great team sport player and so on, and part of what you get out of that is the woman really sees you as almost a hero and very wonderful at what you do, and then she starts criticizing you. You start feeling like, gee, that means maybe a lack of respect for me. That means I'm doing something wrong. And so our protector instinct does not sort of feel like it's being nourished, and we don't have a role, and we may be left, and we may be abandoned on some level, either psychologically or physically, in an actual divorce. And so it's oftentimes hard for men to hear criticism in that way. It's also hard for women to hear criticism because your job is to protect them, and now you're criticizing them. That doesn't feel very good to her either. And so it's
let's see if we can draw a distinction. There's two. I don't even know if it's a good idea to just call it all criticism. I react two different ways to people who sort of coach me up, men or women or anybody. There are people who are just sort of saying, I had a nanny, not for me, but for my kids, but anyway. She'd cook a meal or whatever, and then she'd leave in the evening, and sometimes I'd think, man, she just left the food out, and that's not like her. Well, I guess I'll put it away and then put the cap on it and put it inside the fridge. But later on, I'd say to her, hey, you left the food out the other night. And she goes, because it was hot. And you can't put the lid on it, put it in the fridge, it'll sweat in the cold or whatever, so let it cool down, and then you put the lid on, and then you put it in the thing, and I go, oh, okay, good. And there's times when I would pop the cap and put it, and she'd go, no, let it cool down first, and then put the thing. And I realized she's just giving me a tip and telling me how to do something, and she would tell me stuff all the time. She'd go, like, she'd go, when you're done with the cream, I had cream in a glass bottle, she'd go, it's good. Dump the hot coffee, a little hot coffee in it, shake it up, get all the cream out of there, and then dump that. I'd go, oh, that's good.
Good idea.
Good. I'm going to do that. Yes. Then there are others that just criticize. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're the weird people. They're the, like, you go, oh, it's funny, and they go, you told me this before. You told me this story. And it's like, okay, all right. You could have just sat there or whatever. But there's the people who will dive in with a criticism, my reaction to the tip is thank you.
Yes.
But my reaction to when it is a criticism for the sake of criticism is not the same at all. And they're pretty definable.
I don't think they're so definable many times.
Well, they're not definable if you're scattered.
Well, for sure.
If you're clear,
Let's say somebody says, "Gee, I really don't like it that you don't put the dishes in the dishwasher." Let's say you leave them out in the sink, and it really is a mess, and that feels to 90% of people like a criticism. And so there's a number of ways of handling that. One is waiting for one point in time where the person maybe does put some things in the dishwasher and saying something like, from a perspective of your feeling, that, that gives me so much peace when you put something in the dishwasher like that. And then so you catch them doing something right as opposed to catching them doing something wrong. So, for example, somebody goes shopping. They bring home 32 items, let's say, and one of the items, and you look at in the refrigerator and you see that, you say to your partner, "Gee, I wish you had gotten the quart of milk rather than the half gallon, because the quart of milk fits better into the refrigerator." And so the partner who's gotten the 32 items often feels that the one thing that was wrong was pointed out, and none of the other 31 were pointed out. And second, what makes, that maybe there was no inquiry of me as to what my rationale was for getting the full half gallon. Maybe it was on sale. Maybe you've said in the past that you like things on sale better than you like, things that are more expensive in the long run. And so that is sort of oftentimes interpreted as a criticism of that one thing, but also, what is there? One of the things I work with couples to do is, before you do the criticism, see if there's something that was done right and done well.
Here's my sad observation. I feel like most guys just shut up most of the time because they're just like, I want to say this thing, and I'm not. I'd like something to get done. I'd like to say it. The last time I said it, it turned into something.
Right.
And I'll just not say it, even though I'm not saying it as a criticism. It's going to be interpreted as something.
Yes.
And instead, I'll just eat it and not say anything, which most guys end up doing a lot, I think. Probably women would do it as well. Feel like it's more the guys I know just go, it's not even worth bringing it. Just don't even, whatever. Which then sort of becomes like the employee that you don't want to tell something because they had too big a reaction to it last time. But it's sort of, or the football coach, it kind of means you've given up on the person to some degree, which is what I tell people all the time. That's the worst place to be, when the boss isn't saying anything to you because he's decided that you're just kind of hopeless.
And the same with the wife or the husband that isn't saying something. If you're walking on eggshells, and that's what began my work on the course, was I realized that it's not biologically natural for people to respond to what is really criticism without becoming defensive. And so I asked myself, is there a way around that? And so I created this thing called a caring and sharing hour. And what the caring and sharing hour does is it first teaches couples how to share in-depth 7-level appreciations of their partner, give a couple of those at the outset, and then before they hear their partner's criticism, they meditate into an altered state. So, for example, I'll have the couples sit back to back, and they'll write the answer to the question. If your partner was about to be killed at the next minute or two, and you knew with 100% certainty you could save their life, say they were drowning or in a car accident or about to be in the car accident, but you'd have a 50% chance of losing your own life, would you do it? And then they write down on this piece of paper that their partner will never see, yes, no, uncertain. Well, then these things are read back in the group, 90% of a little bit over 90% of the men, a little bit over 80% of the women say that if children weren't involved, they'd be willing to take a 50% risk of dying for their partner in order to save their partner's life at 100% level. So 90% of the men say this, 80% of the women, a little bit more than usually, say this. And so the first meditation that they do before they hear their partner's criticism is to say, if I'll die for you, well, the least I could do is listen to you.
Yeah.
And it helps put that into perspective. Then a second meditation is what I call the love guarantee. And they meditate. They say, if I provide a safe environment for your feelings and your fears and your upsets, even if the story you're telling is exaggerated, even if your voice is sarcastic, if I still retain a safe environment, you'll feel more secure with me, more loved by me, and therefore more love for me. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, the worse your tone of voice is, normally speaking, if your tone of voice is, you're shouting and something like that, or you're exaggerating, you know it's going to aggravate your partner, you know they're going to shoot back at you, and you know the whole thing is going to escalate. But now, for the first time, you're feeling this enormous security, and as the person about to hear this criticism, you know that the more out of control your partner gets, the more amazed they will be at the security you've provided, the more, therefore, they'll feel love, etc. And so those are two of the 6 mindsets that over the years I've developed that work the best for people to be able to first meditate into before they hear their partner's criticism. But because it's biologically unnatural to do that, you have to alter your natural biological state before you hear your partner's criticism. And then when that happens and you have a time each week set up on the calendar that you're going to hear whatever your partner says that has upset you during the week, and then I teach people how to create a conflict-free zone during the week to what to do between the time they hear the criticism and when they actually go into the caring and sharing mode. That helps people know that I can either respond now and we'll get into a big fight, or I can be fully heard in the caring and sharing time, and then which do I want?
Right.
And so that's a pretty easy decision.
Let me give the book a plug. Rollmate to Soulmate, The 7 Secrets to Lifelong Love. Dr. Warren Farrell is the guest. Where do we get the book? Available on Amazon, and of course the audio one is coming soon, but you can pre-order it.
Audible one can be pre-ordered, and that'll be in a week or two. And the Amazon is right now having a 30% discount on the Rollmate to Soulmate.
Thanks, Doctor.
It's been a pleasure.
Appreciate our chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
And your trifecta of beverages over there. You can go to AdamCarolla.com for all the live shows. I'm traveling around the country doing live stuff everywhere. And until next time, it's Adam for Fitzdog and Sherry and Dr. Warren saying mahalo.